The silence in the Galactic Council chambers was heavy. Captain Jia Kim kept her back straight as the votes appeared on the large screen. One by one, each alien representative voted yes. The final count showed the decision was unanimous. From now on, humans would not fight in any space wars. Jia's dark eyes showed nothing, but her hand tightened on her uniform sleeve. After all her people had done to help win the war, this was their reward, to be pushed aside like dangerous children. "We passed this ban for humanitarian concerns," said the council president, a being called a Meridian who stood 7 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like fish scales in different colors as he moved. "We wish to protect our human friends from the terrible burden of conflict." Jia almost laughed. Protection wasn't the reason, fear was. She had seen how the other species looked at her after what happened at Proxima. They didn't see heroes, they saw monsters. The Proxima campaign was supposed to last at least a year. The enemy forces had taken 3 star systems and were well defended. Military experts from 17 species had made careful plans for a long, difficult fight. Then humans joined. 3 days later it was over. What happened in those 3 days was now kept secret by council order. The records were sealed, but Jia remembered. She commanded the main Earth ship. She gave the orders that changed everything. She saw what humans could do when truly threatened. The aliens hadn't understood human warfare. They fought by rules thousands of years old. Humans fought to win quickly and completely. Captain Kim. Jia turned to see Councillor Talo walking toward her. Talo belonged to a species with 4 arms and skin that looked like bark. His people were known for their wisdom. "The Council wishes to offer you a position," he said. "As a diplomat here on Station Orion, your knowledge would be valuable to us." Jia raised an eyebrow. "So you can watch us, make sure we stay in our place?" Talo's face moved in what might have been a smile. "So we can understand each other better, Captain. Your species is unique." "That's one word for it," she said. Later. That night, Jia stood alone in her room. The large window showed the beautiful fake lake that sat at the center of Station Orion. Colored lights shone on the water from the many buildings around it. Ships from 100 worlds moved in the sky above. Her reflection looked back at her from the glass. A woman in her 40s, black hair cut short, eyes tired from too many battles. Tomorrow she would need to tell Earth's leaders about the ban. They wouldn't take it well. She thought back to the Proxima campaign. The enemy had killed thousands of civilians on Colony World 3. The galactic forces had been fighting by their usual rules, targeting only military ships, announcing attacks, following strict battle plans. And they were losing. Then, humanity joined with their small fleet of 20 ships. "Let us try," Admiral Sun had said to the Council. "We have some ideas." Jia remembered the shock on the alien faces when they saw human battle plans. No announcements, no direct attacks on military targets. Instead, humans went after supply lines, communication centers, and power stations. They used spy networks, computer attacks, and false information. They fought at night from behind and without warning. "This is not honorable combat," the Galactic General had said. "This is how we survive," Jia had answered. 3 days, that's all it took. The enemy surrendered after losing not a single additional ship, but finding themselves unable to move, communicate, or feed their troops. The galactic forces were amazed and terrified. Now Jia watched small boats move across the lake below. The Council's ban wasn't about protecting humans. It was about controlling them. Earth was still new to space travel, still learning about the many alien species. They needed the Council's help and trade. They couldn't fight this decision. Her communication device beeped. A message from Admiral Sun: "Accept the diplomat position." "We need eyes there," Jia sighed. She was a soldier, not a politician, but orders were orders. There was a knock at her door. "Come in," she called. A young human man entered and saluted. "Lieutenant Du, ma'am. I've been assigned as your aide if you accept the council position." Jia studied him. Young, but his eyes showed intelligence. "Tell me, Lieutenant Du, why do you think they banned us from fighting their wars?" The young man considered for a moment. "Because we're too good at it, ma'am." Jia nodded. "And why are we too good at it?" "Because we've been practicing on each other for thousands of years. Because on Earth, War isn't about honor. It's about winning. Exactly. Gia turned back to the window. The aliens fight wars like they're games with rules. We fight them like they're wars. She made her decision. Send word to the council. I accept the position. And then contact Earth. Tell them. I'll need all the information we have on every council species. Their weaknesses, their arguments, their secrets. Ma'am, Gia's face hardened. We may be banned from their wars, Lieutenant, but politics is just war by other means, and I intend to win. 50 years passed since humans were banned from galactic wars. What had once been Captain Gia Kim was now Ambassador Kim, an old woman with grey hair and deep lines on her face, but her eyes remained sharp, watching everything in the great council chamber. For 3 days, the emergency meeting had gone on. Leaders from all parts of the galaxy argued, shouted and spoke in worried voices. No one had slept much. The air felt heavy with fear. It was during the 3rd day that Admiral Jin Park's image appeared in the center of the room. His face was a blue hologram floating above the floor. He looked grim. The Vex have attacked again, Jin said, his voice clear despite coming from Earth, many light years away. Research Station Harmony is gone, destroyed completely. A gasp went through the room. Station Harmony had been a place of peace and science. 42 human scientists are dead, Jin continued. Along with 113 researchers from other worlds, the chamber filled with angry shouts and cries of sadness. Some council members stood and demanded action. Others sat with heads bowed. Gia watched it all with a face that showed nothing. Inside, though, she felt a cold anger growing. Station Harmony had been her idea, a place where humans could work with aliens to share knowledge. Now it was space. Dust. The Vex had appeared 6 months ago. They were silicon-based life forms, hard as rock and twice as stubborn. Their ships looked like jagged mountains flying through space. At first, they took only empty worlds at the edge of known space. Then they began attacking settlements. Now they destroyed research stations. Each time the Council sent ships to stop them. Each time the Council forces lost. Councillor Tallow, now an old and frail being, moved slowly to the center of the chamber. His bark-like skin had faded to a pale brown, and he needed a floating chair to move around. But the room fell silent when he spoke. Our best military minds have studied the Vex advance, he said in a thin voice. They believe the Centauri star systems will fall within weeks. After that, nothing stands between the Vex and the core worlds. No one spoke. The Centauri systems were home to billions of people from many species. If they fell, the heart of galactic civilization would be next. Perhaps, Tallow said, looking directly at Gia, it is time to reconsider the Treaty of Orion. The silence grew deeper. Everyone knew what he meant. For 50 years, humans had been banned from fighting in space. Now, with disaster facing them, the Council was thinking about changing that rule. Gia stood slowly. At 93, she moved carefully, but her back remained straight. Pride kept her tall. You know what you're asking, she said to Tallow. Her voice carried across the silent room. Tallow nodded once. We do. Gia looked around the chamber. Many faces showed doubt. Some showed hope. A few showed fear. They all remembered stories about what humans had done in the Proxima campaign, stories that grew with each telling. I will contact Earth, Gia said finally. But understand this. If we join your war, we fight as humans fight. Far away on Earth, Admiral Jin Park ended his transmission to the Council. He turned to his staff, men and women in the dark blue uniforms of Earth's Space Defense Force. Is Sayat time? Asked his second-in-command. A woman named Captain Sujin nodded and walked to the wall of his office. He placed his hand on a hidden scanner, and the wall slid open. Behind it was a tube-shaped elevator. Come with me, he said to Captain Su. The elevator dropped deep into Earth, far below the official military base. After nearly a minute, it stopped. The doors opened to reveal a vast underground cave. Lights came on automatically, revealing something. That made Captain Su gasp. Ships, hundreds of ships. Some small and fast-looking, others massive with weapons bristling from every surface, all with the blue and white colors of Earth. But Captain Su was shocked. The Council ordered all warships dismantled after the treaty. They inspect us. Every year, Jin smiled slightly. They inspect what we show them. This fleet has never been seen by alien eyes. He walked forward onto a platform that overlooked the massive space. For 50 years we have built, improved, learned. Does the Council know? Sue asked. Ambassador Kim knows. A few others suspect. Most believe we obeyed their treaty. A communication device on Jin's wrist beeped. He looked at it and nodded. It's time, he said. He pressed a button on a nearby panel. Throughout the cave, lights began to flash. Sirens sounded. People started running to their stations. Begin preparation protocols, Jin ordered, his voice now carried by speakers throughout the base. Workers began climbing into the ships. Fuel lines connected to tanks. Weapons systems came online. Jin looked at the fleet that humans had built in secret. 50 years of planning and work, all for a day they hoped would never come. And may the stars help the Vex if we're called, he said quietly. Captain Sue looked at her commander. Do you think the Council will really ask for our help? After keeping Curse out for so long, Jin's face was grim. They have no choice. The Vex cannot be beaten by following the old rules of war. And we don't follow rules in war, Sue said. No, Jin agreed. We follow results. The darkness was complete in the abandoned Vex outpost. Lieutenant Hannah Lee moved like a shadow, her steps making no sound on the metal floor. 5 other humans followed her, each wearing the black combat suits of Earth's special forces. Hold, Hannah whispered, raising her fist. Her team froze. Ahead, a faint light blinked from a doorway. Hannah pointed 2 fingers at Sergeant Bow, who nodded and slipped forward. He took a small device from his pocket and placed it against the wall. The device showed heat signatures. No Vex soldiers inside. Just as their intelligence had said, the outpost had been left with only automated systems running. 3 weeks had passed since the Council lifted the ban on human warfare. The Vex had pushed closer to Earth, destroying 3 human colonies and threatening more. In desperation, the Council voted to allow humans to join the fight. What happened next surprised everyone, except humans. Instead of sending their fleet to meet the Vex in open battle, Earth launched hundreds of small teams, like Hannah's. They slipped behind enemy lines, gathering information and placing strange devices in key locations. Clear, Bo whispered, returning to the group. Hannah nodded and led her team into the room. It was a communications center with computers and transmission equipment. The team worked quickly, each person knowing exactly what to do without speaking. Hannah placed a small silver disc, a quantum disruptor, under the main console. She pressed the center of the disc, and a green light began to pulse slowly. The device would wait for the signal from command, then activate. Command, this is Phantom Team, Hannah whispered into her wrist communicator. We've placed the quantum disruptors, moving to secondary objective. A voice replied in her earpiece. Confirmed, Phantom Team, proceed with caution. The secondary objective was in the lower level of the outpost, the power control center. There, they would place more disruptors and gather data on Vex energy systems. As her team moved through the dark corridors, Hannah thought about the strange war they were fighting. Not at all what the Vex or even their Council allies expected. Thousands of light years away, on the Council battleship Unity, Admiral Jin Park stood before a large screen showing the movements of both Vex and Council forces. Beside him stood General Ko of the Tavari, a species known for their direct approach to warfare. I don't understand, Ko said, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. Your ships are engaging at only 30% capacity. According to our calculations, you could overwhelm the Vex fleet with your firepower. Why hold back? Jin smiled slightly. That's not how we fight. Then how do you fight? Ko demanded. The Vex have destroyed 4 of our colony worlds. They killed millions. Why not crush them with all your strength? Because, Jin said calmly, that's what they expect. And in war we never do what the enemy expects. Ko made a frustrated sound. The Tavari were proud warriors who believed in facing enemies head-on with full force. The human approach made no sense to him. Jin pointed to the screen. Watch this sector tomorrow. You'll begin to see our strategy. Back at the Vex outpost, Hannah's team had reached the power center. They worked quickly to place their devices and collect data. Suddenly, Bo held up his hand. "Movement," he whispered. "2 Vex soldiers approaching." "Wasn't in the intel," Hana signaled her team to hide. Unlike most alien species, humans could see well in near darkness, an advantage their ancestors had evolved on Earth. They watched as 2 Vex entered the power center. The Vex were tall, with bodies that looked like moving rock. Their silicon-based bodies gave them natural armor, making them difficult to kill with conventional weapons. They moved with confidence, clearly not expecting any danger in their own outpost. Hana had 2 choices: fight or hide. Fighting would alert the Vex that humans had been there. Hiding might work, but if they were discovered, they'd have to fight anyway. She chose a third option. Reaching into her pack, she removed a small sphere and rolled it across the floor. It stopped near the Vex soldiers and began emitting a high-pitched sound. The Vex couldn't hear it. Their hearing worked differently than humans, but they could feel the vibrations, which matched the communication frequencies they used with each other. The Vex turned, thinking another of their kind was calling them. They left the room to investigate, giving Hana's team time to finish their work and escape. 3 days later, the human strategy became clear to everyone. Across 50 star systems, Vex communications suddenly failed. Their ships received false orders or no orders at all. Power stations shut down at critical moments. Supply ships found themselves lost in space, their navigation systems showing them in completely wrong locations. On the Unity, Admiral Jin and General Ko watched the reports. "Coming in." "The Vex fleet is in chaos," an officer reported. "They're firing on their own ships in some sectors. In others, they're retreating without being attacked." Ko turned to Jin with new respect in his eyes. "Now you attack, yes? Now you send your full fleet to destroy them while they're confused?" Jin shook his head. "No. Now we offer them a chance to surrender." "Surrender?" Ko was shocked. "After what they did to our worlds, they deserve destruction." "War isn't about what people deserve," Jin said quietly. "It's about achieving your objectives with minimal loss of life, on both sides." A human officer approached. "Sir, we've received word from 50 more Phantom teams, all objectives completed. Phase 2 is ready when you give the order." Jin nodded. "Begin Phase 2. Across the battlefield, human ships began precise surgical strikes against key Vex targets. Not their population centers, not even most of their military bases, but the specific command ships and strategic points that would cripple their ability to continue fighting. In the Council Observation Chamber, representatives from 20 worlds watched the human campaign unfold with growing amazement. "This isn't war as we know it," said the Meridian Observer. "This is something else entirely." "No," said Ambassador Jia Kim, who stood among them, her old eyes watching her people at work. "This is exactly what war has always been for humans. We just learned long ago that the point isn't to kill your enemy, it's to make them stop fighting." The Vex Supreme Commander slammed his stone-like fist onto the table, cracking its surface. Around him, his war council flinched. Bad news had become common in their meetings, but their leader's anger was growing more dangerous. "Another base lost," the commander hissed, his voice like rocks grinding together. "The humans destroyed our command center in the Proxima system without firing a single shot. They simply turned off life support and waited." One of his generals spoke up. "We still do not understand how they broke our codes again. We changed them only yesterday." "They adapt too quickly," the commander said. "Every tactic we deploy is countered within hours, not days or weeks. It's as if they can see into our minds." The truth was simpler but harder for the Vex to accept. Humans had been studying warfare for thousands of years. They had fought themselves in countless wars, learning and improving their methods each time. The Vex, who had only ever fought weaker species, had no such experience. "What do they want?" asked another general. "Why not simply destroy our ships when they have the chance?" "Because," said the commander, "they are not just fighting our ships. They are fighting our will to continue. This is a kind of warfare we have not seen before." As weeks passed, the Vex tried new approaches. They attacked civilian targets, hoping to break human resolve through fear. They hit a farming colony on New Eden, killing 10,000 human settlers. The response was not what they expected. Admiral Jin Park received the news of New Eden's destruction while on his flagship, the Horizon. His face showed no emotion as he watched the images of burning farms and dead colonists. When the report ended, he turned to his staff. "Prepare the Ghost Fleet," he said quietly. "Target the Vex homeworld's moon bases. No warning." The officers nodded and left to carry out his orders. No one questioned the decision. No one suggested mercy or restraint. The Vex had chosen this path. 2 days later, the Vex lost their 3 major moon bases. No Vex ship saw the human vessels coming. No alarm sounded. The bases simply ceased to exist, destroyed by weapons that left no radiation, no trace of how they worked. The message was clear. For every human civilian target hit, the humans would take something more valuable from the Vex. Growing desperate, the Vex turned to biological warfare. They released a deadly pathogen on the human colony world of Terra Nova. The disease spread quickly, killing over half the population before doctors could find a treatment. On the Galactic Council station, representatives from 20 worlds watched, in horror as reports came in from Terra Nova. Many expected the humans to break, to beg for peace terms, or to lash out blindly in rage. Instead, Earth went quiet for 3 days. No messages. No movement of ships. Nothing. On the 4th day, every Vex military leader above a certain rank received the same message on their personal devices. It was a video showing their own families, their homes, their secret places. Along with the video came a simple text: "We can reach anyone, anywhere. This ends now or they do." The Vex had not believed their families could be found, much less threatened. Their confidence broke. Half their fleet surrendered within hours. Ambassador Jia Kim, now 94 years old, stood before the Galactic Council. Many members looked at her with new eyes, some with respect, others with fear. "You're witnessing why we were banned from galactic warfare," she said quietly. "Not because we're cruel, but because we evolved as prey that became predators. We understand fear. We weaponize it." A Meridian counselor spoke up. "But threatening innocent families, is that not against your own rules of war?" Jia smiled faintly. "We never touched them. Never would. The threat alone was enough. The Vex didn't know that, but you should." The remaining Vex forces, led by their supreme commander, refused to surrender. In a final desperate move, they gathered their remaining ships, over 300 vessels, and headed directly for Earth. "Let us see," the commander told his troops, "if humans fight differently when their own home is threatened." What the Vex found at Earth was not just military resistance, but an entire planet prepared for war. Orbital defense platforms fired weapons that cut through Vex shields as if they weren't there. Human ships performed maneuvers that their alien allies considered suicidal, flying directly at Vex vessels before turning away at the last possible moment, leading the enemy into prepared traps. Most surprising to the watching Council forces was how human soldiers maintained their courage and discipline even when things went badly. When a human ship was damaged, its crew kept fighting. When communications were cut, units continued following their last orders. There was no panic, no breaking of ranks, no each-for-themselves mentality that the Council races often experienced. "In dire situations, they're like one mind in many bodies," observed a Tavari officer watching the battle. Admiral Jin's voice was calm as he directed Earth's defense. "Activate the Titan Protocol," he ordered, when the Vex main fleet broke through the outer defenses. Across the solar system, hidden weapons platforms came to life. Weapons that the Council didn't know existed. Weapons that humans had built and hidden during the 50 years they were supposedly at peace. The Vex fleet found itself caught in a web of fire from all directions. Ships that tried to flee found their engines suddenly dead. Communication between Vex vessels stopped completely. Within 6 hours, the battle was over. The Vex Supreme Commander's ship, attempting to reach Earth itself, was stopped just beyond the moon. Its engines died. Its weapons went silent. And then, slowly, it turned around and headed back toward deep space, pushed by some invisible force that the Vex engineers couldn't understand or resist. The Vex never reached Earth. Their war was over. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled to capacity. Representatives from every world in the Alliance stood or sat or floated, depending on their species. At the center of the room stood Ambassador Jia Kim of Earth, now 94 years old, but standing straight as a soldier. 2 months had passed. Since the end of the Vex War, the enemy had surrendered completely after their central command base was infiltrated by Lieutenant Hannah Lee and her small team of human operatives. No one knew exactly what happened inside that base, but rumors said that Hannah had given the Vex Supreme Commander a choice: surrender or face extinction. "The terms are non-negotiable," Jia told the assembled council, her voice steady despite her age. "Humanity will serve as the galaxy's defenders, but under protocols we all agree upon." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked worried. "You ask much," said the Tavari representative, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "After 50 years of keeping humans from war, now you want control of all military forces?" "Not control," Jia corrected. "Coordination. There's a difference." She walked slowly around the central platform, making eye contact with many council members. Her simple grey suit and white hair made her look more like a grandmother than a military leader, but everyone in the room knew better. "We don't seek to dominate," she continued. "We seek to protect, but understand this. We fight as humans fight. That will not change." The room was silent now. They had all seen how humans fought. The Vex, once thought unbeatable, had been defeated in less than 3 months once humans entered the war, and human casualties had been surprisingly low, less than 2,000 dead compared to millions of Vex Councillor Talo, now extremely old even for his long-lived species, spoke up from his floating chair. "I was there when we banned humans from warfare," he said, his voice thin but clear. "I thought we were protecting the galaxy from them. Now I see we were denying ourselves their protection." A day later, the Council voted to accept what became known as the Pax Humana, the human peace. Earth would become the center of galactic defense. Human ships would patrol the borders of Council space. Human strategists would train allied forces. Human diplomats would work for peace first, but when diplomacy failed, human soldiers would respond. Admiral Jin Park stood with his officers on the bridge of the horizon, watching as alien ships joined the human fleet for their first joint training exercise. "Will it work?" asked Captain Su, now his second in command. "Can we really protect the entire galaxy?" Jin looked out at the stars. "We protected Earth for thousands of years, even from ourselves. We can do this." "And the Council?" Su pressed. "Will they truly let us fight our way if trouble comes again?" "They know now that our way works," Jin replied, "and that we fight not to destroy, but to end fighting as quickly as possible." On the planet Meridia, in a city that had been partly destroyed during the war, construction crews worked to rebuild. Some were Meridian, with their shimmering scale-like skin. Others were human, smaller but moving with quick efficiency. Together they were making good progress. In a park nearby, a young Meridian child watched as human peacekeepers patrolled the area. The humans wore blue uniforms with a new symbol, a stylized Earth with stars around it, the emblem of the Pax Humana forces. The child turned to its parent, confused. "Why do we trust them now?" the child asked. "Teacher said humans were dangerous, that they were banned from fighting because they're too violent." The parent's scales shimmered in patterns that showed thoughtfulness. They watched as a human peacekeeper stopped to help an elderly Meridian cross a damaged street. "The most dangerous predator makes the best guardian," the parent replied. "Humans don't fight because they love war. They fight because they understand its true cost better than any of us." The child considered this, but they're so small and soft, the Vex were made of stone. "True strength isn't always in the body," the parent said. "Sometimes it's in here." They touched the child's head. "And here." They touched the center of the child's chest where the main heart beat. "Humans are the youngest species in the Council," the parent continued. "But they learned more about war in their short time than the rest of us learned in thousands of years. They know how terrible it is. That's why they work so hard to end it quickly." "Will there be more wars?" the child asked. "Perhaps, but not as many, I think. Word has spread about what happened to the Vex, and about the new defenders of the galaxy. Many who might have caused trouble will think twice now. As evening came, more children arrived at the park, both Meridian and human. They began to play together, inventing a game that involved both running, which humans were good at, and climbing, which Meridians excelled at. Their laughter filled the air. In the center of the park stood a new monument, a simple stone pillar, with names written in many languages. The names of those lost in the war, both alien and human. At its base, someone had placed fresh flowers. The human peacekeeper who had helped the elderly Meridian came and stood beside the parent and child. She looked up as the first stars became visible in the darkening sky. "The war took my brother," she said quietly. "He was on Research Station Harmony when the Vex destroyed it." "I am sorry," the Meridian parent said. The human nodded. "That's why I joined the Peacekeepers, so his children can grow up in a galaxy where that doesn't happen. Again." Above them the stars twinkled in the night sky, safer now than they had been in centuries. The Pax Humana had begun.